In the quiet, sun-drenched town of Harmony Creek, where the biggest news was usually the county fair's prize-winning pumpkin, Sheriff Brody lived a life of predictable routine. He was a good man, respected by the townsfolk, a steady hand in a world that rarely shook. But one sweltering afternoon, a single piece of mail, misplaced and insignificant, would land on his desk and unravel everything he thought he knew about peace and justice. It was an ordinary-looking envelope, aged and slightly yellowed, with no return address. It was addressed to a Mr. Alistair Finch, a name that didn't ring any bells in a town where Brody knew every soul. The postmark was smudged, but it looked decades old. It had been found wedged behind a faulty mail sorting machine at the post office, a ghost from a bygone era. By rights, it should have been sent to the dead letter office, but the postmaster, a friend of Brody's, thought the sheriff might get a kick out of the local mystery. Brody set the letter aside, intending to deal with it later. But as the day wore on, its presence on his desk became a quiet, persistent hum. Curiosity, a trait he usually kept on a tight leash, began to tug at him. Who was Alistair Finch? What could a letter, lost for so long, possibly contain? A declaration of love? A business proposal? An old family secret? The sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The office was empty, the silence broken only by the buzz of the overhead lights. Brody picked up the letter. He ran his thumb over the brittle paper, the faded ink. His professional duty told him to leave it sealed, to respect the privacy of a man he'd never known. But a deeper, more human impulse urged him on. It was just an old letter. What harm could it do? With a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of a decision already made, Brody carefully slid a letter opener under the flap. The sound of tearing paper was unnaturally loud in the quiet room. He unfolded the single sheet inside and began to read. The handwriting was neat, precise, but the words were a chilling confession. The letter wasn't from a lover or a business partner. It was from a man confessing to a crime, a perfect crime. The writer described in methodical and horrifying detail how he had caused the accidental death of a prominent town figure years ago, a case that had been closed, ruled a tragic but straightforward accident. The victim was a man named Samuel Gable, a wealthy landowner whose sudden death had shocked Harmony Creek. The official report cited a fall from a high scaffold on his property, but this letter painted a different picture. It spoke of a loosened bolt, a frayed rope, a deliberate act of sabotage disguised as negligence. The writer, who signed off only with an initial J, expressed no remorse. Instead, he detailed his meticulous planning, his alibi, and his cold satisfaction in seeing justice, as he defined it, served. Gable, the letter claimed, was not the benevolent figure the town remembered. He was a tyrant who had ruined the writer's family. This was revenge, pure and simple. Sheriff Brody felt a cold dread creep up his spine. This wasn't just a confession, it was a roadmap to a murder that everyone had missed. The case had been handled by his predecessor, the legendary Sheriff Miller, a man Brody had idolized. Miller was known for his sharp mind and unwavering integrity. How could he have missed this? The letter provided details only the killer could know, the exact time, the specific tool used to weaken the scaffold, the overheard conversation that served as his alibi. It was all there. The mystery of Alistair Finch, the intended recipient, suddenly became terrifyingly clear. Finch must have been an accomplice, or at least someone the killer trusted with his darkest secret. Brody's heart hammered against his ribs. He had unearthed a ghost. The statute of limitations for murder never expires. His duty was clear: reopen the case. But as he stared at the letter, a new, more complicated reality began to dawn on him. The confessed killer, Jay, would be an old man now, if he was even still alive. Samuel Gable had been dead for over 30 years. Reopening the case would mean digging up old wounds, dragging respected families through the mud. Gable's children and grandchildren were pillars of the Harmony Creek community. The man who wrote the letter, if found, would face prison for the rest of his life. Families would be destroyed, the town's peaceful history rewritten as a lie, and then there was Sheriff Miller. To reopen the case would be to publicly declare that his mentor, a local hero, had failed. It would tarnish a legacy that Brody himself had helped build. Was it worth it? For a crime 3 decades old? For a victim who, according to the letter, was no saint himself? For days, Brody was a man possessed. He locked the letter in his desk drawer, but he couldn't lock away the knowledge it contained. Every smiling face he passed on the street seemed to mask a secret. Every familiar landmark held a new, sinister meaning. The town's cherished peace suddenly felt like a fragile illusion built on a foundation of lies. He started digging discreetly at first. He pulled the old case file for Samuel Gable's death. It was exactly as he remembered, thorough, detailed, and concluding with accidental death. He read through old town records, searching for anyone with the initial J who might have had a motive. He found a few possibilities, old men now living quiet lives, their faces etched with the lines of time, not malice. Could one of them be a cold-blooded killer? The more he searched, the more he felt himself sinking into a moral swamp. He was the law. The truth was his mandate. But the truth, in this case, felt like a bomb he was holding, and he couldn't see a single way to detonate it without catastrophic collateral damage. One evening, unable to sleep, he drove to the old Gable property. The mansion was gone, replaced by a modern housing development, but the old oak tree mentioned in the letter still stood, a silent witness. Standing there under the stars, Brody felt the full weight of his dilemma. If he revealed the letter, he would bring chaos and pain to the present in the name of a long-dead past. If he buried the secret, he would be complicit in a lie, betraying the badge he wore and the oath he took. He thought of the families involved. Gable's daughter, now a grandmother herself, was a kind woman who ran the local library. And what of the killer's family? Were they aware of the darkness their father or grandfather harbored? Ignorance, in this case, truly seemed like bliss. In that moment, Brody made his decision. It was a choice that would go against every professional instinct he had, a choice that would forever be his own secret burden. He went back to his office, took the letter from his desk, and walked to the small kitchenette. He turned on the gas stove, the blue flame hissing to life. For a long moment he held the brittle paper in his hand. It felt impossibly heavy, a single sheet containing a lifetime of secrets and pain. Then, with a final heavy breath, he touched the corner of the letter to the flame. He watched as the fire consumed the neat handwriting, turning the confession into black, curling ash. He watched until every word of the terrible secret was gone, scattered into meaningless particles. He had chosen peace over truth. He had chosen the present over the past. He had chosen to let the ghosts of Harmony Creek sleep, but his own would never rest. From that day forward, Sheriff Brody was a changed man. On the surface, he was the same reliable lawman, but a quiet sadness settled in his eyes, a weight on his shoulders that no one else could see. He had shouldered the burden of knowledge and the guilt of inaction. Every time he passed the library, every time he saw the Gable family, every time an old-timer mentioned Sheriff Miller's legendary career, a piece of the secret he burned would flicker back to life in his mind. He had opened a stranger's letter out of simple curiosity, and in doing so, he had sentenced himself to a life of silent regret, haunted forever by the truth he had chosen to destroy. He had preserved the peace of his town, but in the process, he had lost his own. Thank you so much for watching. This story is a powerful reminder that some doors are best left unopened and some secrets are better left buried. If you found this tale as compelling as we did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that explore the hidden corners of human nature. We'll see you in the next one.